poignant as it was, the testimony of the local people seemed as if it would create more questions than answers, until we met local farmers and lifelong friends Harry Taverner and Harold Prideaux.
Very old friends. We're local characters, born and bred here in the village. And of course, in those days, we used to play around on this estate in the woods. We used to chase around the woods and toboggan down over the wheat field and the ice and
we had
snow.
Americans doing that.
And yeah, but that was before the Americans ever came here.
And when they came.
Yeah. Anyway, that's so historically that's where we come from.
These were squarish huts up there, more room for vehicles, I presume.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't remember much about that.
There was two Nissen huts there, right by the trees. No, they were American Indians. A lot of them were that I saw.
The Native Americans, were they interested?
Well, they were most of them very tall, very smart people actually. And they were there working away. I didn't take any notice of what they were. They were just Americans, and they were doing the job. Yeah, that was it. They were engineering. They were putting cars ready for D-Day, putting snorkels on them.
All those vehicles that they used in D-Day, you always knew what they were. Well, we didn't know what they were. I mean, we used to see these vehicles because they had like a big snorkel coming up out the engine to get air. I mean, because they were going underwater, basically. They were going to be submarines. And the jeeps all had to have that if they were going.
And they were spraying inside.
So they were converting these vehicles up there, ready for D-Day. Bear in mind, as I said, these Americans, the blacks who were all down in Nailsea. We woke up on the morning of June the 6th, and they used to have all along Southfield Road, as it's called.
They were gone.
They were all their big lorries.
On the 5th,
they were always queued up along there. We got up on the morning, everything gone.
There's a lot of great things that came out of the oral histories. I think if anything, which is kind of a theme throughout this whole project, is, you know, tensions and fragmentation, different memories, different stories, you know, that are all kind of going off in different directions. And I think that's kind of been one constant thing in this project, which is kind of interesting and unique. And also, you know, it's good because there's so many things you can look into. I think for me personally, kind of the most interesting things was their memories of, you know, Black Americans in the area. You know, when you're looking at other articles to kind of compare your research to with race and historical archaeology, or archaeology in general, a lot of sites previous, you know, in different contexts will have certain items that, you know, you can say, oh, that was definitely African American, looking at bowl types, looking at utensils, looking at, you know, personal effects. And it's funny because in this military context, everything is so standardized. Presumably, black or white, you would have had a similar uniform, similar shoes, similar eating utensils, you know, most of the time similar buildings. So this really makes it difficult in this context to just look at the archaeology and be able to say, yes, these were Black Americans, because everything's in a military context is so standardized.
But we did look closely at the archaeology, and we hoped that local memory could help us in identifying a puzzling range of artifacts which turned up in an excavation.
That had to be military. There was no other reason that they would have had glass like that on the site. Ceramics to do with electrics, I would say. Well, I think that is a grating off of a drain. There are similar things to this on the estate, on the drive. Right. Well, this is asbestos sheeting. I would have said that the roof on the buildings up there must have been of asbestos. They certainly were down the camp. They were all asbestos roof.
The report that I do have, and a lot of other reports that talk about American hospitals, they did use that for the roofing. And so since we do have a lot of that, you know, on the site, then it makes that connection quite clear. So finally we did receive the archives of the 74th General Hospital that was situated on the larger site of the state. And unfortunately, there was absolutely no mention at all of our mystery site and absolutely no information really that would help with the archaeology at all as far as the kinds of buildings and when they were constructed, by whom they were constructed. A couple of the guys who actually remember the site said that it was built before the Americans came, and it was built by the British. So, I mean, if anything, this document reinforces that because there's absolutely no mention of it. And it would seem that something of that size, with that many buildings, you know, would, and if it was, you know, utilized by the same body that was using the hospital, that it would be mentioned, but it wasn't. So it's really been kind of a letdown because we thought that perhaps these archives would answer a lot of our questions, when in fact they've actually just added a little bit more mystery and kind of made things a little bit more blurred instead of clearer. So.
I don't think of you often, but I remember you well, as I sit in my cell and drink from a bowl. And when that bowl's dry, I hold it just right and drink from your eyes, if you're still alive.